Help. My husband and I have been married for 20 years. We're in our 50s with 2 kids. I know we need to do something for estate planning, but my husband doesn't even want to talk about it. What can I do? Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Wills, Women, and Wealth podcast, where we lead you holistically from overwhelmed to empowered through estate planning. I am Elsa W. Smith, your Maryland estate planning and probate attorney, and I'm also the host of the Wills, Women, and Wealth podcast. This is a podcast for women who value their health, their wealth, and the legacies that they are creating. Each episode is going to bring you interviews in the areas of finance, law, mental and physical health, and so much more. I will also share educational episodes that answer your questions on wills and estate planning topics. This is a community, so I want you to engage. Do you have a question or topic you'd like us to feature on Wills, Women, and Wealth? Contact us via social media or leave a comment. This and all future episodes will be available on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. You can help us grow by liking this episode and giving us a 5-star review on Apple. Now, on with the podcast. The subject of today's podcast is navigating estate planning when your partner is reluctant. Now, for this episode, I'm going to discuss my thoughts from the perspective of women hesitating to move forward because they encounter resistance from their spouse. Right now, from my experience, I see this quite often, even in 2023. And yes, even though we've survived a pandemic, estate planning can really make a difference in the lives of women. Think about it. Women should know the ins and outs of setting up an estate plan, not just for themselves, but also for their family. And so why is this important? I'm glad you asked. Well, for those of you who don't know, women tend to marry older men more often than the other way around. Plus, women generally live longer than men. So when they reach around like 60, 65 years old, women are about 3 times more likely to end up widowed compared to men. So with that in mind, since women are often going to outlive their husbands, their spouses, it's crucial for them to have a good handle on the estate plans that they've put together. Now, here's a pain point. If a woman wants to engage in estate planning, but her spouse refuses to move forward, it can really be a challenging situation. Now, if you find yourself in that situation, it's important to remember that resorting to nagging, begging, or even making threats towards your spouse likely will not yield positive results. Okay, so here are some suggestions for women who are listening. Consider them all in light of your particular situation and see what works best. And just as a premise, these are all my judgments, my opinions, and do with it what you will. But again, I've seen quite a bit during the years of practicing as an estate planner. So I share my experiences with you through this list of suggestions. So the first is really don't hold off on getting things moving. That's the first suggestion. While having your spouse on board from the beginning would be ideal, if they are not ready, you should still take steps to start your planning. Remember, you have the power and the right to determine how your individual assets will be handled after you're gone, even if your spouse isn't actively involved. Plus, decisions like powers of attorney for property or advance directives are personal choices that need to be tailored to your individual circumstances. So don't wait around for your spouse to jump in before you make these important choices for yourself. The next tip involves open communication. In addition to what I've just mentioned, I recommend starting a sincere and open chat with your spouse about how crucial estate planning is. Creating a safe and non judgmental environment where your spouse feels comfortable discussing his concerns is important. Let him know that you are there to listen and to understand without pushing him into any decisions. Now, share your worries, your dreams, and why you are so enthusiastic about moving ahead with this. But don't forget to give him a chance to speak his mind as well. It's really important to grasp where each other is coming from. And that's how you can pave the way for some middle ground. The next tip is to educate and inform. If your spouse is hesitant because he's not quite getting the whole estate planning thing or it's important, you might want to offer him some information and resources to help things click. Share details about how estate planning benefits both of you and sets your family up for a secure future. It could really make a difference in getting him on board. And feel free to visit our YouTube library at Elsa W. Smith Law with plenty of educational videos regarding estate planning. The next tip is to seek professional advice. Consider reaching out to a financial planner, estate planning attorney like myself, or other experts in the field. Sometimes having a professional explain the ins and outs, as well as the possible downsides of not having an estate plan, could make your spouse think twice about his stance. Their insights might just be the nudge that he needs to see things separately. Excuse me, see things differently. Now, an estate planning attorney would share the consequences of dying without a plan. And many of you who follow this podcast have heard me talk about intestacy. In Maryland, the intestacy laws, not you, would dictate how your assets will be distributed if you don't have a plan. Now, if you've met with an estate planning attorney, the advice I've given is to reach out to other professionals that I've mentioned to see if maybe hearing about the need for estate planning lands differently, depending on who's the one conveying the information, hearing it from someone else. Another tip for you to consider in kind of getting your partner on board with estate planning if he's resistant is to consider compromise. If your spouse has particular reasons for saying no, like worries about or concerns about certain parts of an estate plan, it could be a good idea to chat about it and find some middle ground. You might be able to work out a compromise that addresses his concerns while still staying true to your goals. It's all about trying to find that balance. Another tip is to focus on your shared goals. Let's put the spotlight on the goals that you both share for your family's safety and financial stability. Talk about how estate planning isn't just about you or him, it's about safeguarding both your interests and ensuring your loved ones are taken care of down the road. It's a way to bring your aspirations to life. Another tip is to start small. If your spouse feels a bit overwhelmed by the whole picture of estate planning, you could propose beginning with smaller steps, starting with simple things like crafting a will or naming beneficiaries for retirement accounts and life insurance policies could be a good entry point. These initial moves might pave the way for more in depth planning later on. It's all about taking one step at a time. Here's another tip: address underlying issues. Now, every now and then, the pushback against estate planning could have deeper reasons beyond, just money matters. Opening up an honest conversation or considering counseling, might be ways to tackle these bigger concerns and find solutions that go beyond the financial side of things. Gently ask questions to understand the reasons behind his resistance. It might not be just about finances. There could be emotional, family related, or even psychological reasons at play. So try to get at the root of his concerns. Now, in this point, I want to just go a little deeper on the underlying issues point. Let me emphasize that what I'm about to suggest only applies to some men, underline some. Intimidation. The feeling of intimidation that some men might experience when a woman moves forward with estate planning can stem from a variety of factors, often rooted in societal norms, cultural beliefs, and personal insecurities. And here are three reasons that may contribute to that particular phenomenon. Traditional gender roles. In some cultures and societies, traditional gender roles have assigned certain responsibilities and decision making powers to men, including financial matters. When a woman takes the lead in estate planning, it can challenge these established norms, leading to feelings of insecurity or uncertainty or even discomfort for some men. Another issue related to this is the perceived loss of control. Estate planning involves making important decisions about assets, inheritance, and future arrangements. If a man is used to being the primary decision in financial matters, he might feel a loss of control or relevance even when a woman, his wife, takes charge. Another point is insecurity. Men, like anybody else, can have insecurities about their knowledge or capabilities. When a woman demonstrates confidence and expertise in estate planning, it might trigger feelings of inadequacy or self doubt in some men. Remember, as I said over and over again, this applies to some men. The good news is that positive shifts in societal norms have been happening for years, and many men are true champions of women's participation in every aspect of life, including financial planning. We've got a ways to go, but at least the tide is turning. By communicating openly, sharing knowledge, and building mutual understanding, we can help close the gap and reduce the sense of intimidation that might come up. And hopefully, that might lead to a happier marriage. Who knows? But again, these are just my observations and some tips that I have for you. The last point in helping to navigate the murky waters of when your partner, your spouse, is reluctant to move forward with estate planning has to do with empowerment. If you find that your spouse is really sticking really digging in his heels and refusing to move forward, it might be time to think about taking matters into your own hands. I know that this isn't an easy step, but remember, your own financial security and personal well being matter too. You could kick things off by talking to an attorney or a financial planner to start the process on your own terms. It's about making sure that you're taken care of no matter the circumstances. These are my suggestions and my opinions. This podcast, like the mission of my law firm, is to empower women through estate planning. If this message resonated with just one woman and that woman took a step forward to protect her legacy, I've done my job. Are you ready to move forward? Are you ready to see what life could be like, knowing that you would be taken care of if you became seriously ill, or knowing that your family would be provided for if you passed away suddenly? If you've been doubting yourself as to whether you can actually get your estate plan done, I want to invite you to book a free 15-minute call with a member of our team. There is absolutely no obligation, and the link will be below in the show notes. I'm Elsa W. Smith, your Maryland estate planning and probate attorney, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Wills, Women, and Wealth podcast. Take care and make it a great day.